I'm Kimberly Park. I'm the Director of Admissions at Harvard Extension School, a job that makes me particularly qualified to speak on today's topic because one of the main purposes of an admissions process in most schools, including ours, is to predict as accurately as possible how likely it is that a student will succeed in his or her program. And online learning is a relatively new experience for most of our degree-seeking students and whose classrooms of the past had technology that looks nothing like it does now. So what I'm going to share with you today is based on reading and research I've done, but also from insights derived from my years and years of working with these students at Harvard Extension. Admittedly, as the title of this webinar suggests, not much of what I have to say is novel, especially if you've lately Googled anything remotely similar to online learning preparation and success. So in this webinar, I'm going to distill all those results into just 5 practices that, in my experience, most often help a student succeed in an online course at Harvard Extension School. I'll end the webinar with a few extra tips that come straight from the admissions staff. Before we begin, you should know that these 5 practices take the shape of the student experience from before registering for a course to being well into a course. But you can and should use this information at any time, so I hope you'll listen actively, even if you believe you may be past a certain point. Okay, so let's begin. 3 years ago, I led a PARC webinar that focused on online learning, and since then, many aspects of it have changed greatly. But what hasn't changed is the crucial role motivation plays in the success of online learners. On campus, the shared purpose of several hundred or even thousand classmates performing similar functions on similar schedules creates a collective energy that can carry a student a long way over a term, over a year, over several years. However, for most online learners, the driving force behind getting almost anything accomplished for school usually has to come from within. Think of it like this. If an on-campus learner rides a wave to the shore, the online learner must actively swim, often against the tide, to reach that same shore. Motivation is what compels the online learner to keep swimming. This is a bit of a metaphor, but really the most basic form of motivation stems from our need to survive. And related to that is a form of motivation called rational motivation. Typically, it's instigated by an outside source, like a boss or an instructor, and it includes rewards or feedback that are often necessary, like a paycheck. They're easy to distinguish, this kind of motivation, like it's a certain grade, like a B or an A, and it's quick to come by, usually in less than a year. This is the motivation behind short-term goals. The other kind of motivation is internal or emotional, which originates from your personal values, aspirations, and desires, like wanting to have a rewarding career or to contribute in a meaningful way to your community. This is the motivation behind long-term goals, which consist of many short-term goals. Studies show that it's internal motivation that plays the greater role in achieving your goals due to the simple fact that you're more invested in the outcome. In other words, you do it because you want to, not because you have to. The successful students I've known are those who clearly identify their short-term goals and connect them to long-term goals in order to sustain their motivation. Because it matters to them, they put in more effort, practice more self-control, and persist when a challenge presents itself. So before a term begins, take a few minutes to identify or reassess your long and short-term goals. Find connections among and between them to generate the internal emotional motivation that will help you persevere. Online courses are not any easier than in-person courses. They may be more convenient so that you may save time commuting, for example, but the quality of the content should not be any different, and the rigor of the instruction and learning should be equal. Schools have many administrators and committees actively governing these things to ensure their school or university standards are not diluted. In addition, faculty and staff work very hard to produce online learners with an experience that's just as engaging as one that's in an on-campus classroom. In fact, I know faculty who admit that their on-campus courses feel flat by comparison and become inspired to revamp them to be more like their online courses. The classroom experience as a result is there, but it's in a different form than what you might be used to. Same with your classmates. You may never meet any of these people in person, and some you'll never see, but like you, they exist, and you'll likely have to interact with them as part of your course. You also need to respect them and your instructors as you would if you were sitting in a classroom, acting and dressing appropriately. You can read more about the school's expectations for your behavior, attendance, and grading in online courses, and it's on our website under resources and policies. Without a doubt, online students need to work a little harder than on-campus students to fully enjoy the benefits of taking a course, but it's absolutely possible to do. And at the end of this webinar, I'll talk more about how to do that. Another assumption to check is that you're ready for a course from a technological standpoint. Before registering, not attending, registering for a class, confirm you have everything you need to participate fully. Now, these may seem like basic questions to some of you, but for others, they're important enough for me to know. So the first question is, do you have a reliable laptop or desktop computer with current software and updates? You cannot take a course using a phone. I'll just say that right now. You also don't want to rely on your employer's computer or laptop, which may have firewalls or other restrictions that prevent you from downloading the software you need for your course. Second question is, do you have a reliable internet connection? This is a particularly important question for some of our international students to ask themselves. The fourth practice is something called related to your educational commitment. So now that you're motivated to take an online course, and you're realistic about its demands, and you have the technical requirements handled, ask yourself if you're prepared in a personal, practical sense. There are 2 questions I find students don't ask themselves nearly enough. They skip right over them sometimes. The first is, Do you have a dedicated, constant, quiet place in which to view or participate in your course? The second question seems easy, but it's actually quite complicated. Do you have the time to complete this class? By time, I don't just mean the few hours a week it takes to watch a video or participate in a class. I mean over the course of 15 weeks or 7 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever the length of the term. Will you have enough time each week to do the reading, write the papers, submit the problem sets, contribute to group work, post comments, make presentations, produce the homework, find a proctor for your exams? These questions will help you assess what's called your educational commitment, which basically means where your education rates compared to your other obligations and restrictions you may have. As a non-traditional learner, your life roles must be a consideration. Kids, job or jobs, plural, mortgage, health concerns of your family or yourself, a business you own, a job that requires long hours or irregular hours, religious obligations, a military commitment that could change on a moment's notice. Some of these life complexities you can plan for and work around for a short time, while others you can't. And what you can and cannot do will change term by term, year by year, as your life changes. So you can't just reflect on your educational commitment once and assume that that's the path you're going to take and you're not going to waver from it for several years. But you also may not want to wait too long for your life to become completely stable, because we all know that's just as unrealistic. So I suggest you start small and just focus on the term ahead to determine if this is the right time in your life now for you to take a class. The next practice revolves around the idea of organization. Whenever you do decide that enrolling in a course makes sense for you, you'll need to get organized right away. People organize themselves in different ways with different systems. Methods vary and resources vary even more. There are entire CARC webinars and handouts on the topic of organization, and I'll mention them in a few minutes. But what I'll tell you now is that there isn't just one way to get organized that works for everyone. But a system that seems natural and logical to you will be the one that you use most frequently, which is what will help you stay organized. There is, however, one tool every online learner should use as part of their efforts to get organized, whatever they are, and that's the course syllabus. Syllabi are typically posted in advance of registration so that you can use them strategically. Remember, ideally at this point, your goals and motivation for moving forward are clear, your expectations are realistic, your technical readiness is confirmed, and your educational commitment for the term is set, so that whittling down hundreds of course options to just a handful should be an easier task. And when you have only a few from which to choose, you'll want to map out the term by comparing your particular obligations against the course requirements and deadlines. Not all syllabi are created equal, I do know that, but most will give you the essentials, if not more, for planning purposes. You need to be at your computer a good 15 to 30 minutes ahead of time to get plugged in and ready to start on time. Make sure that your laptop is charged and your notebooks and your pens are ready and you have your headphones or your earbuds in place. You have to get organized before the class starts. And then you want to look at the weekly breakdown of the term. You want to look at the assignments and their due dates. You want to consider them in relation to your job, religious obligations, family commitments, etc. You'll definitely need to plan in advance for some of them. And for all deadlines, you should incorporate extra time to meet them, because as an adult learner, you'll inevitably encounter some unexpected speed bumps that can complicate your plans. Ailing relatives, demanding jobs, winter and all its snowy, icy glory, flat tires, calls from the school nurse, it's life. So tight deadlines won't work. Broader is better. Of course, you need to know more than just due dates to get a fuller idea of the course. So read the entire syllabus carefully, because you might be surprised by what you find. For example, the black arrow points to a line near the beginning of the syllabus. It says, so this class is designed with no exams. I mean, who wants that class? Everybody. But actually, you can't stop there. You have to look at the course requirements, and then you have to see how much each contributes to your final grade. Most instructors are quite clear about this. Throughout this syllabus, though, the instructor is also quite clear about the importance of class participation and its frequency, which is pretty regular, and the quality of the engagement, which is pretty high. He also tells you about his late work policy, which is strict. And finally, he goes into great detail about how to reach him, or his teaching assistant. And in fact, he gives you a protocol to follow, right down to what the subject line of the email should include. So this instructor is very clear about his expectations and preferences, which is good, because there are no surprises. But it also means that if you don't follow his directions, the outcome will not benefit you. Knowing your resources. The most important thing to know about seeking help is that without the seeking part, you won't get the help part. In addition to your instructor and TA, your classmates, and the support system you have in your personal and work life, there are people at the school who can help you. And if you're not sure who can help, I suggest contacting our enrollment services team, because they know everything, seriously everything. But there are plenty of resources on our website that you can access 24/7. So I'm going to just mention a few here. First, there's CARC. The webinars like this one, which you probably found through the resources and policies page on our website under academic skills building. Webinars may change each year, but there will always be a focus on topics pivotal to student and online learning success. And this is just a partial list of the webinars for this term. You can see the topics are amazing. They include goal setting, writing, public speaking, editing, study skills, procrastination, time and task management, communication, class collaboration. Some of these are topics I just touched on in this webinar, like methods and resources for getting organized. They all deserve a much deeper dive, so I encourage you to take advantage of as many of these webinars as you can. And if you can't attend them live, they're recorded, so you can go to the video archive and watch them when it's more convenient for you. Recently, I asked my staff if they had any tips they want me to share with you, and they came up with these 10. So the first one is to read the website, read your syllabus. When I said there's so much out there, I meant it, but mostly on the website. Everything you need to know is there for the most part. Second, if you have a question, go to a subject matter expert. Question about admissions, ask someone in admissions, not a faculty member. Question about a class requirement, ask the instructor or the TA, not another student. Question about exceptions to a registration policy, academic services, not the faculty member. And if you're not sure who the subject matter might be, again, contact the school's enrollment services team and they'll guide you there. Because remember, they know everything. Third, worse than languishing in silence is waiting until the end of the term to seek help. You will simply have fewer options at that point and people won't be able to help you, although they'll want to. Fourth, schedule your asynchronous courses. If you can watch a course recording whenever you'd like each week, set a regular time in your schedule and commit to it, essentially treating it as if you don't have any flexibility. Otherwise, there's a greater chance you'll put it off. 5, follow directions and submit assignments properly. Learning the proper way to submit assignments is almost always an issue at the start of the semester. One of my colleagues told me that in the math course she TAs, the instructor gives students a practice assignment, it's not graded, so they can learn how to upload and download their assignments in the correct format. This practice is a requirement of the course, and any subsequent assignments that don't meet the submission criteria receive a grade of 0. So you should make every effort to read the syllabus carefully, understand what you need to do, and know how to do it. 6, plan ahead, but not too far. Next, if you send an instructor or TA or a school administrator an email and you don't receive a reply within a reasonable time frame, please resend it. We are human and we can miss it, or your email could go to a spam folder. It happens, so please give us a second chance. Then, have a realistic definition of what that reasonable time frame is. Working at Harvard Extension School, I can tell you firsthand that everyone here sincerely wants to help everyone out there. But there are a lot of everyone's out there, approximately 22,000 a year right now. So if you have a question, chances are there are at least a few hundred who also have one, usually at the same time. Don't wait until the last minute or hour or day for an answer or to ask for help if you need it. But if you can't help it, and just all I ask is that you keep in mind that someone on the other end is working really hard to be helpful. 9, harness your motivation. All too often, my staff and I see students take too many courses in one term because they let their enthusiasm override practical matters like time constraints, or, almost as important, our explicit advice not to do something. They are so focused on reaching that long-term goal faster that they refuse to align their expectations with reality, and they cannot accomplish their short-term goals. It's absolutely heartbreaking to watch, especially when it could have been avoided by practicing a little patience, common sense, or humility. Lastly, I'm going to end here with something I began with, the idea of engagement. Remember those several hundred on-campus students riding the same wave? That wave is a wave of engagement, campus engagement, student engagement. It's fundamentally about connection, and it has many benefits. Sometimes a course requires you to connect, like Paul Green's organizational behavior course, and sometimes you have to make the effort to create the connection through a study group, perhaps. A place to start connecting is through online class participation, which will help you get noticed among the virtual crowd. Instructors and TAs can tell by your level of engagement with the class and with the material when you are truly committed and really doing the work. Good online habits include creating thoughtful discussion posts that are relevant to the readings, posting sincere replies to classmates' contributions, posting regularly and unprompted, not only around deadlines, and sharing outside but related information with the class. As a result, your instructors will register your name and your skills and your individuality. And your classmates will notice too, because don't you notice students like this? Those are the ones you especially want to connect with, because let's be honest, it's nice every once in a while to catch a wave to the shore. So, and I hope you do, because any chance to make this experience an easier one is one to take advantage of.